She leaned in, lips brushing against his in a soft yet persuasive kiss that sent shivers racing down her spine. The world outside melted away. There were no family duties, no looming threats, only them, wrapped in a cocoon of warmth and desire. Desmond responded immediately, wrapping his arms around her, pulling her deeper into the embrace, the kiss evolving from tentative to fervent. It was a moment swelling with all that they had been keeping at bay. Passion, vulnerability, a shared dream of being free. Slowly, they pulled apart, foreheads resting together. "What if this is truly impossible?" Laelani murmured, breathless from the intimacy they had briefly indulged. "Sometimes the most impossible things are those worth chasing," Desmond replied with a gentle intensity that made her heart leap. Scene 96, emerging together. The morning sun poured through the vast windows of the Sinclair estate, casting soft, golden light across the expansive kitchen where Laelani stood, deftly kneading dough. The familiar scent of freshly baked bread hung in the air, mingling with the faint aroma of freshly ground coffee brewing nearby, a ritual she found comfort in amidst the turmoil of her heart. Despite the chaos lurking just outside the estate's elegant facade, this seemingly banal task felt remarkably grounding. Desmond entered quietly, his presence both soothing and unsettling. He paused at the doorway, taking in the scene with a warmth that spread through him, but beneath it lay a tension that could snap at any moment. "What's this? Are we baking our way to freedom?" he teased, his smile charming yet layered with unspoken strain. "Freedom comes with a little bit of rising, and some kneading," Laelani replied, her eyes twinkling. The light-hearted banter seemed forced at times, yet it was necessary as their lives hung in delicate balance. He stepped closer, gingerly brushing flour off her forearm with the tenderness of a lover, but the restraint of a guardian. "You know, it's the kneading that helps the bread rise." There was a depth to his voice, as if every word was a reminder of the obstacles they faced each day. She caught his gaze, the moment stretching like the dough she worked. "And it's the heat that keeps it from collapsing." There was a profound understanding between them, unspooling in the silence that followed, a fragile intimacy swaying on the edge of revelation. Desmond, suddenly vulnerable, shifted his weight. "Sometimes I feel like I'm not just kneading dough, but also the burdens of the past, yours, mine." A slight tremor in his voice betrayed how much those burdens were weighing him down, all the while trying to rise above it all. Laelani's heart lurched at his unexpected honesty. "What do you mean?" she asked, the affection in her tone unmasking a deep concern beneath her playful facade. Desmond's eyes darkened, memories flickering across his visage like shadows. "I've been amassing secrets, Laelani. My whole life is built on them. And every day in this house reminds me of the intentions that come to light when you turn over the stones." "Then let's roll those stones together," she urged gently, stepping forward, flour dusting her hands as if it could erase the distance brewing between them. Just then, a loud crash resonated from the adjoining room, accompanied by raucous laughter. Rena and Harlow, their friends, entered like a tempest, baking supplies strewn about and their usual chaos humming in the air. Rena, her dark curls bouncing, held a precariously stacked tower of plates. "Hope you weren't hoping for a quiet morning. Clearly, you underestimated the art of juggling," Harlow quipped from behind, struggling to keep up and bumping against tables, sending an arrangement of fruit quaking. Laelani laughed, a melodic sound filled with relief. "More of a quiet, dreaming morning, I suppose. You girls always bring the fire." "Just trying to keep it spicy in here," Rena smirked, wagging a playful finger. "And speaking of spice, how are the—" She nodded at Desmond and raised an eyebrow. A quick glance exchanged with Laelani stifled further inquiries. "Desmond is just helping me prep." Laelani deflected, a hint of mischief lighting her eyes as she flicked flour at Rena. "Right, prepping for what? Another family dinner where we pretend everything's perfect?" Harlow countered, her voice taking on an edge charged with camaraderie and challenge. "You two are obviously keeping something sizzling." Desmond shifted, covering his unease with a quirk of his brow. "If only you knew how right you are," he remarked, his voice deeper, a mask over the turbulent undercurrent between them. The atmosphere veered as laughter bubbled from the crumbling facade they fought to maintain. But moments like this, the intimacy hidden beneath all the levity, filled Laelani's heart with the warmth of possibility. "Let's not feign perfection," Laelani proposed, feeling her passion rising, tempered by a shared vulnerability. "Shall we embrace everything bruised beneath the surface?" Before their laughter faded, she caught Desmond's eye, the moment brimming with unspoken promise. "Together," he echoed softly, a vow forged in the warmth of the kitchen and the chaos outside. As the morning unfolded, they stood side by side, ready to confront the looming shadows together, fortified by the truth they were beginning to embrace. Scene 97. Solidifying bonds. The sun began to set, casting long shadows across the polished wooden floors of the Sinclair estate. Desmond Carver stood by the fireplace, a freshly polished teapot in hand, steam curling like a wisp of memory into the air. He poured the fragrant tea, the scent of jasmine filling the spacious room. Each slow motion felt monumental, as if the very act of brewing tea was a ritual of intimacy, a tender thread woven into the fabric of their growing bond. Laelani Sinclair entered, her fingers lightly grazing the mantel as she approached. The flickering light bounced off her neck, catching the soft curls of her hair while accentuating the delicate features of her face. She had donned an amiable blue dress, its fabric swirling with her every movement like the petals of a blossoming flower. "Smells lovely," Laelani remarked, her voice soft, yet layered with an undercurrent of tension. She felt the weight of societal expectations pushing down upon her as she studied Desmond, noticing the tightness in his jaw, the way his eyes focused intensely on the teapot rather than her. "Just a humble blend," Desmond replied, forcing a casual tone, but a flicker of something deeper passed between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of the feelings that tangled like vines in their hearts. He set the teapot down with a deliberate motion, their eyes locking momentarily, a charged moment holding their breath. Laelani stepped closer, the air thick with anticipation. "Do you ever wonder if there's more to life than this?" she asked, gesturing vaguely around the opulent room, indicating the trappings of wealth, a gilded mirror, the overflowing vase of fresh roses, the distant sound of laughter from guests in the ballrooms. "It certainly appears that way," Desmond said, his gaze shifting to the fireplace. "But what does it mean to be free? What does it mean to truly live?" He paused, his voice a whisper that beckoned her closer. "What if living means embracing the risk of everything falling apart?" His words hovered, heavy with unexpressed desire. Laelani felt her heart flutter, torn between the safety of a comfortable life and the electric thrill of uncertainty. "Are we brave enough to face it?" she whispered, her breath catching as the question hung between them like a taut string ready to snap. Desmond stepped forward, crossing that fragile line, and reached for her hand. The warmth of his touch sent shivers along her spine, grounding her in the moment, yet illuminating the path of chaos laden with unknowns ahead. "For you, Laelani, I'd leap into the tempest," he declared, the intensity of his gaze anchoring her soul in a plea for connection. Their connection sparked past uncertainty, as body language spoke louder than words, in the slight curl of her fingers around his, in the way her breathing quickened, each breath a brush against the edges of undiscovered territory. "You shouldn't say things like that," she breathed, pressing her palm against the fabric of her dress as if to steady her racing heart. "What if everything fell apart?" Desmond was silent for a moment that stretched like a taut string. He stepped in closer, their bodies a mere breath apart. "Then we would have to create something new," he murmured, capturing her gaze with an intensity that silenced the whispering winds of doubt. In the heart of the estate, where elegance surrounded them, a world stripped of pretense unveiled itself within those lingering moments. Time slowed as he leaned in, the air charged with possibilities. With a gentle urgency, he cupped her face, leaning toward her, the world fading away to a poignant hush. Their lips met, not forcefully, but with a profound reverence, a stride into the unknown that tasted of both longing and liberation. The kiss ignited a chorus of emotions, the danger, the beauty, the passion. It was a dance of discovery that filled the space around them, an unshackling from the binds of expectation. Laelani felt herself melting into him, their breaths mingling in a glorious symphony. Just before the moment deepened further, she pulled away, breathless and wide-eyed. "What if all I want is this?" she whispered, her heart thrumming with the weight of life's choices. leaving the question hanging like a drop of rain poised at the precipice of an overhang. Desmond's eyes glittered with admiration, a hint of mischief lingering within. "Then, my lady, let us see where this leads." Their hands intertwined as they broke from the kiss, just as the distant sound of laughter and music from the ballroom began to swell once more, echoing the multi-layered life waiting outside the sanctuary of their growing love. Scene 98. An ever-changing landscape. The estate glimmered in the late afternoon sun, a vivid contrast to the weight of unspoken truths swirling within. Golden rays filtered through the tall windows of the parlor, casting soft shadows that danced over the plush furnishings, whispering secrets of comfort and security. Laelani Sinclair nestled into a corner of the elegant couch, her fingers idly tracing the intricate stitching of the fabric, creating a rhythm that echoed her racing heart. She appeared every inch the lady of privilege, yet her mind teetered on the precipice of turmoil, where ideas of elegance entangled with thoughts of rebellion. Desmond Carver entered the room silently, adjusting his cuffs with a practiced ease. His dark eyes scanned Laelani, lingering just a fraction too long on the flush of her cheeks, the way sunlight illuminated her features, crafting a mosaic of shadows and light. To him, she was a sunbeam caught in pure crystal, the kind of brilliance that shattered expectations. "Morning, milady," he said, a hint of mischief lacing his voice as he shifted the heavy tomes resting on the side table. Laelani's heart fluttered. "Is it still morning? I could swear the day is slipping away." "It tends to when one is lost in thought," he replied, the corners of his mouth curling into a smile that held their shared secrets of laughter and palpable longing. Before she could respond, the door swung open, and Matilda, a sprightly maid with a penchant for gossip, entered, arms crossed defiantly. "You two might want to keep it down," she said, eyes narrowing playfully. "I can hear you from the kitchen, and Lord Sinclair is in a mood today, not to mention Mr. Harris." "Ah, yes," Desmond remarked, lifting an eyebrow with mock seriousness. "The dreaded Mr. Harris, he who dare meddle in the affairs of the heart." He turned to Laelani. "I hear he's been sniffing around." Laelani rolled her eyes, though a smile betrayed her. "I wouldn't call it sniffing, more like a persistent pest. What do you think he wants?" Matilda chuckled. "Your money, dear. It's always about the money. He's more shark than man." With that, she set a fresh batch of scones on the table with a flourish, smirking as she retreated. A shadow flickered across Laelani's face, her mischievous demeanor giving way to disparity. "If only we could be free of these societal trappings, Desmond, just for one day." "Free?" Desmond stepped closer, his voice dropping. "What would that look like?" She met his gaze, her heart racing at the prospect of breaking beyond the gilded cage of expectations. It was a frightening thought and thrilling, driving a wedge deeper into the tension suffusing the air. Just then, a loud knock echoed through the house, jolting Laelani from her reverie. "Who could it be?" she asked, a tremor of anxiety creeping in. "I'll fetch it," Desmond said swiftly, his demeanor shifting to one of purpose. He walked toward the door, where Matthew Sinclair, Laelani's husband, and a man of imposing stature emerged, flanked by two intimidating bodyguards. "What's this? A private gathering?" Matthew's voice sliced through the air, layered with authority and mockery that made everyone in the room tighten momentarily. Laelani's heart sank as she noticed the uneven gleam in his eye, a telltale sign of trouble. "Just a simple chat, dear," Laelani replied, straightening her blouse as Matthew stepped past Desmond, dismissing him with a cold glance. "Let's not waste time on idle chatter," he said, taking a seat. "I'm disturbed by a few developments in our business dealings. You're the last person I'd expect to let rumors about our family circulate." The accusation hung thick in the air. Laelani felt heat rise to her cheeks, the words stinging like a slap. "I have no control over the thoughts of others," she replied defensively. However, her gaze flickered to Desmond, searching for reassurance, just as the tension sparked between husband and wife ignited the room. "You're right, you don't," Matthew shot back, leaning in close, his voice low and unforgiving. "But you are the reason they're taking hold. Your affairs are becoming distracting." Desmond shifted, his posture tense, sensing the danger rising in Laelani's eyes. She clenched her fists, a storm brewing beneath her composed facade. "I would never betray our family's reputation." Matthew's lips curled into a taunting smile. You say that now, but who knows what you might reveal in a moment of weakness. Those rumors, they thrive on moments just like what I'm witnessing now. At that instant, everything shifted. Desmond felt the pull of the inevitable fight rising within him. He would not allow Laelani to stand alone against this onslaught. Perhaps it's time everyone decides what they truly want, he declared suddenly, stepping out of the shadows. Laelani's eyes widened, a mix of admiration and fear coursing through her as she realized the stakes had never felt higher. This was not a mere rumor, it was a battle for their freedom, their love, and their very lives. As Desmond confronted Matthew, the air crackled with tension, and for a heartbeat, Laelani found clarity in chaos. She would fight too to protect what mattered most. Scene 99, facing new challenges. The air outside crackled with the threat of an impending storm, dark clouds tumbling over one another in a dramatic ballet. Inside Laelani's sprawling estate, the tension was palpable, the dimly lit drawing room feeling like a pressure cooker as voices clashed. "I can't just sit back and let them ruin everything," Laelani exclaimed, her hands trembling slightly as she gripped the edges of a nearby ornate table, the polished wood warm beneath her fingertips. A burst of wind rattled the window panes, echoing her turmoil. Desmond, leaning against the mantel, exuded a quiet intensity. His voice was calm but layered with frustration. "And what, precisely, do you propose? A siege?" "We are outnumbered and overmatched, Laelani. You need to think this through." A fleeting glance exchanged between them spoke volumes, the kind that had once promised hope and escape, but was now laced with a bitter edge. Laelani felt her heart quicken, both from the confrontation and the heat building between them, a mix of desire and pain wrapping around her like a vice. "You think I'm being reckless? You think I'm afraid?" Before Desmond could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed in the hallway, allowing just enough time for Lady Laelani to take a breath and compose herself. She straightened, smoothing the silk of her dress, transcending the moment of vulnerability. "Desmond, I." Laelani began, but the door swung open, and Fiona, her childhood friend, burst into the room, her face flushed with urgency. "You won't believe this. I just saw Marcus in the garden." Desmond straightened immediately, the mention of Laelani's husband shifting the atmosphere from personal to perilous. "What do you mean?" he demanded, his protective instincts fully awakened. Fiona's eyes darted between them, her enthusiasm dimming. "He's talking to someone. Shady. I thought you two could use a heads up. He's not just planning directed against you, Laelani. This is bigger than you think." Laelani nodded slowly, fear mingling with a palpable sense of purpose. She paced the room, her fingers brushing against the velvet curtains, taking in the swirling winds outside that mirrored the chaos within. "Who's he engaging with? What are they planning?" Fiona hesitated, and the hesitation spoke of deeper worries. "Someone connected to the syndicate. They're regrouping, Laelani. It feels like an attack is coming." Desmond felt a rush of adrenaline. "We need to act now, before they can orchestrate anything against you." He stepped closer, eyes burning with determination. "Please, Laelani, your safety is paramount." For a moment, they were caught in each other's gaze, the unspoken spark igniting anew. The air thickened with longing, memories of stolen kisses whispering in the back of their minds. But reality intruded. Laelani looked away, breath hitching. "How can I trust you? You're the one who has been clandestine in your dealings." "Trust," he said sharply, the word tumbling from his lips laced with frustration. "I've done everything to keep you safe while delving into danger. Everything about me, my past, it's all tied in knots, but I would never put you at risk, Laelani." The shadows in the room deepened, and the thunderstorm's first rumble sounded. Laelani's heart raced. "You think I need saving? I've been caged for too long by this life and my titles. Perhaps I want to dive into the chaos." At that moment, the door flew open again, this time revealing Nathaniel, Desmond's childhood friend, striding in with an air of calculated ease that was almost disarming. "The garden. Lads, best watch your backs. It's not just Marcus out there. The whole gang is stirring." Desmond shot a glance to Laelani, concern etched in his brow. "We need to decide. Do we confront them head-on, or do we dig deeper to discover their plans?" Laelani felt an unexpected surge of courage. "We can't live in fear anymore. I refuse to." Nathaniel interrupted. "It's not just about you, Laelani. Consider the implications. If they find out about Desmond, But Desmond cut in, his voice now a low growl of determination. "I'll handle myself. All that matters is you." Thunder resounded outside, claps echoing like a heartbeat in the chaos swirling around them. "Then we face it together," Laelani said, her resolve solidifying. "I will not let my life be dictated by fear or by Marcus's misdeeds." As they stood together, on the edge of danger, the storm outside consumed their world, just as the daunting prospect of rekindled enemies loomed ahead. "Together," Desmond murmured, almost to himself, as the first raindrops hit against the window, heralding change as a harbinger of their shifting fates. Scene 100, balancing love and danger. The afternoon sun pooled in the sprawling garden of Sinclair Manor, casting dappled shadows through the branches of the ancient oaks. Their broad, twisting limbs provided partial shelter against the sky's brilliance, while whispering winds toyed with the blooms of lavender and jasmine, the sweet fragrance weaving through the air like an enchanting melody. Laelani Sinclair stood by the wrought iron gate, her heart thrumming like the distant beat of drums, an incessant reminder of the growing complexity of her life. She watched as a familiar figure approached, Desmond Carver, the butler who had turned her world upside down. His tall, lean frame moved purposefully, each stride an echo of the quiet turmoil nestled within. "Lady Sinclair," he said, his voice smooth as silk but tinged with an undercurrent she couldn't ignore. "Desmond," she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "What brings you here?" He stepped closer, establishment and space collapsing around them, the air thickening with unspoken urgency. "I thought a walk might clear your mind. There are matters." He hesitated, glancing around as if the leaves might overhear. "Matters requiring your attention." "Is it about my husband?" The name felt bitter on her tongue, a reflection of all she had learned but dared not voice. "Partly," Desmond admitted. He paused, the silence radiating with palpable tension. "But there's something more pressing regarding your safety. Your husband's affairs are not easily brushed aside." The mention of her husband sent a ripple of unease through Laelani. She had traded her heart for a gilded cage, and Desmond had awakened something within her she had thought dormant. "I'm tired of living in fear, Desmond." A flicker of sympathy crossed Desmond's features, but it was quickly replaced by determination. "Then let's change that." He shifted closer, lowering his voice to a melodious whisper that carried a weight both thrilling and dangerous. "There's a gala tonight, a gathering that could provide us the information we need. It's risky, but you think it might be worth it," Laelani interjected, her pulse quickening. The thought of attending a glamorous event with him made her heart race, drawing her closer to the edge of a precipice she didn't know she was willing to leap from. "Both the risk and the reward are equally considerable," Desmond mused. "But my instincts tell me it's time to confront your husband's world head-on. It's not just your freedom at stake, it's your future." As they stood there, the world around them spun with laughter and muted voices from the manor. Other guests revelled in their oblivious happiness, a kaleidoscope of colours against the green backdrop of the garden. Among them, Simone, Laelani's childhood friend, chatted animatedly with her husband, whose jovial disposition was a stark contrast to the tension pooling between Laelani and Desmond. "Are you not going to join them?" Desmond's gaze flicked towards Simone. "Setting aside your fears, the ladies will certainly demand your presence." "Don't turn our conversation to frivolities," she insisted, pouring fervour into her words. "You think I can merely resume my life, all smiles and laughter, while my heart and mind are ensnared in chaos." Desmond moved in closer, the world around them fading to silence. "You don't need to put on a facade for me, Laelani. I see beyond that. They will never understand the truth of what you're facing." She could feel the intensity in his gaze, a magnetic pull that both thrilled and terrified her. The air crackled as they shared a moment suspended in time, the very chaos of the world distilled into this tiny fragment where nothing else mattered. "I wish," she began, but the sudden crack of a branch brought them crashing back to reality. They turned instinctively, eyes wide. It was Carl, her husband's right-hand man, stepping into view with a smug expression that could shatter their fragile peace. "Fancy meeting you both here," Carl said, his tone a shade too light, like a predatory cat toying with its caught mouse. "Nowhere quite like the garden," Laelani retorted, wrestling to mask her anxiety. She could feel Desmond tense beside her, unwavering like a statue amid the storm. "Just so," Carl said, an easy smile spread across his face, but with a glimmer of malice behind it. "I trust you're behaving," he added, eyeing Desmond like a hawk. "Always," Desmond replied, but the double entendre sliced through the air, leaving clarity in its wake. As Carl sauntered away, Laelani turned back to Desmond, both of them fully aware now that their lives were teetering on the edge of a knife. She could hear her heart pounding, the garden's beauty tainted by the reality of their entanglements and the dangers lurking just beyond the facade of their delicate lives. "Where do we go from here?" Laelani asked, biting her lip as she reached for his hand, her heart seeking the comfort of his touch. "We redefine what it means to be free," Desmond replied, his eyes dark with determination, channeling every ounce of energy toward their shared future. In that moment, with the heavy scent of blossoms and danger mingling in her lungs, Laelani knew they stood on the threshold of something monumental, a dance between love and peril that could consume them both. Scene 101. Slow erosion of trust. The clouds loomed heavy in the sky, casting shadows through the tall windows of the Sinclair Manor. Thunder rolled in the distance, a distant echo of the brewing storm that mirrored the tension brewing within Laelani's heart. She stood in the grand drawing room, the ornate fireplace casting flickering light upon her face, a strangely stark contrast to the tumult swirling inside her. How long could she remain caught between duty and desire, she wondered. Laelani pushed the thought away as she picked up her crochet needles, her fingers deftly maneuvering through a pale lavender yarn. Yet her thoughts drifted to Desmond, his voice, deep and soothing, lingering in her mind like the faint notes of a forgotten song. What had started with curiosity now felt dangerously close to obsession. Their fleeting glances had turned into stolen moments, but now every brush of the hand felt like a burden she couldn't shake. Just then, the door swung open, and there stood Desmond, a figure of restrained intensity. He was dressed impeccably in his black tailcoat, but tonight there was an edge to his posture, a tightness in his jaw that sparked alarm within Laelani. She felt her breath hitch in her throat. "Lady Sinclair," he said, his voice steady but taut, "I was hoping to discuss the arrangements for the charity gala tomorrow." Her heart raced at the sound of her title on his lips. "Of course, Desmond. But you seem different." "Different?" His brows furrowed slightly, a flicker of something dark crossing his features. "How so?" "Almost." She hesitated, searching for the right words. "On edge. Perhaps this storm is affecting us all." At that moment, the sky opened, pouring rain against the window panes, each drop a reminder of the chaos that loomed outside and within. Desmond stepped closer, the scent of cedar and sandalwood enveloping her in his presence. She wanted to reach out, to bridge the invisible gap that had started to form, but something unnameable held her back. "It's just—" she started, feeling the weight of the air around them. "I thought we'd built a bond, from the first day you arrived." His eyes dropped for a moment, and she couldn't decipher the emotions behind them. Then he looked up, steely determination taking hold. "You've grown attached to me. I understand that, but you must remember your responsibilities. Your status requires you to remain distanced from someone like me." "Someone like you?" The words slipped out before she could smother them. "What does that even mean? Would you really want to jeopardize everything? Your marriage? Your reputation?" As his words hung in the air, a distant voice echoed in Laelani's mind, the voice of her husband, Raphael. He had spoken of loyalty, of duty, of the risks involved in trifling with love. Laelani flinched at the thought, and her hands tightened around her crochet. "I didn't mean to complicate things," Desmond continued, his tone softer now, tinged with a longing that countered his previous hardness. "But I cannot pretend that I am not aware of the consequences." The distance between them felt insurmountable, and she felt as though something fragile had cracked open between them, an invisible fissure that threatened to widen with each passing moment. "I want," she began. But Desmond took a step back, the movement abrupt and jarring. "What you want, my lady, can't be obtained without sacrifice." His gaze turned to the storm outside. The rain was now lashing at the ground, a wild dance of nature that mirrored their turmoil. "Dare I say you should get under the umbrella?" Laelani said, trying to inject lightness into the charged atmosphere. But the attempt fell flat, and his expression hardly shifted. What umbrella could shield us from this chaos? They're coming for me, Laelani. If they find out what I am, what I've been doing under your roof. Doing? What do you mean? The words came like a distant thunderclap, echoing back in her mind. Those who think they own this town control everything, even love, he pressed, his intensity winding like a taut bowstring ready to snap. In that moment, as the storm raged outside and shadows deepened within their fragile sanctuary, she felt the walls closing in around them. "Will you trust me?" he asked, a desperate plea mixed with something akin to fear. The question hung between them like the storm's thunder as the foundation of trust began to erode. Laelani's heart thudded painfully as she searched his gaze, searching for an anchor in the swirling tempest. What choice do I have? Desmond's expression darkened, the tension rippling between them like the electric air before an impending lightning strike. Maybe we both need to choose. Scene 102. Fighting their demons. The sun hung low in the western sky, bathing the lavish dining room in a warm amber glow that cast long shadows across the mahogany table. Laelani Sinclair stood behind the sideboard, her fingers gliding over the crystal decanters with an absent-mindedness that betrayed her tumultuous thoughts. Stacked dishes awaited washing in a cozy nook, remnants of a lavish breakfast that had morphed into a haunting silence. Every clink of glass heightened the tension between her and Desmond Carver, who leaned casually against the doorframe, his expression a mixture of concern and watchfulness. "I thought I saw you earlier by the stables," Desmond said, his voice low yet sharp, laden with unspoken questions. Laelani turned, wiping her hands on her apron as she shot him a glare. "Is that a crime now? To seek solace in the company of horses?" Her words sparked a flash of irritation. "Or is it your job to ensure I don't stray too far from whatever it is you think I should be doing?" Desmond stepped forward, his brow tensed as he tried to gauge her mood. "It's not about that. It's about you," he paused, choosing his words with care. "About us." "Us?" Laelani echoed bitterly, twirling a crystal flute between her fingers. "You dance around the subject as though it is merely an inconvenient truth lifted off by a gust of wind. What do you want from me, Desmond? A promise? A vow?" "Yes," he shot back, frustration mingling with a hint of desperation that made her heart quicken. "I want honesty. I want to know why you spend your afternoons skulking about like a ghost. Is it remorse for stealing away with me? Or are you frightened of what the truth means?" "You act as if it's so simple," she spat, her eyes glimmering with a mix of pain and anger. "You think I enjoy this tangled net we've woven? My heart flutters with anxiety, not for my husband's judgment, but for the destruction my heart longs to provoke." Outside, the laughter of children echoed from the gardens, their joyful innocence mixing with the heaviness in the room. Laelani's heart twisted at the sound. It felt so far removed from her reality. Behind her, George, her husband's friend, edged into view, clutching a book tightly to his chest. "Lady Laelani, have you seen my—" "Not now, George," Laelani snapped, a sudden burst of irritation spilling forth. His eyes widened in surprise as he retreated back, leaving her to confront the tempest brewing in the room. She inhaled deeply, grounding herself as she faced Desmond again. "Perhaps it is you who needs to step back. This relationship, if we can even call it that, is built on secrecy and lies. I can't continue pretending we live in a fairy tale." Desmond's gaze softened momentarily. "And yet it feels real," he murmured, stepping closer, the space between them tightening like a taut string. "Every flicker of your laughter, every stolen glance, it all draws me deeper. Fear drips from duty, Laelani. It's suffocating. I will not be another of your ghosts, lingering behind the veil of your affections." Her voice quivered slightly, betraying her internal conflict. The air thickened between them, pulsing with the unsaid. As they stood there, caught in a storm of emotion and betrayal, unexpected vulnerability broke through Desmond's steely facade. "What would you have me do? Abandon my mission? Leave everything behind? I protect you, from him, from the darkness. But the fight, it weighs heavily on my heart." Laelani's frustration cracked, and for a moment, the sharp edges softened. "Desmond," she whispered, her tone shifting as she moved closer, longing to bridge the chasm they had created. In that moment, the world melted away, leaving just the two of them in the charged space of their unspoken connection. The air tingled with a tangible energy as Desmond reached out, brushing his fingertips against hers. Tension hung like a ripe fruit, ready to burst. Yet before anything could be uttered, a loud crash erupted from the drawing room. "Desmond, we have trouble!" a voice shouted, shattering their fragile moment. Laelani stepped back, the sudden shift in atmosphere like a cold wave dousing the warmth ignited between them. Her heart raced with a mix of dread and urgency. What now? Desmond turned abruptly, tension rippling through him, every muscle coiled for action. "I'll handle it." "No," she insisted. "We face this, whatever it is, together." Desmond's gaze held hers, an unspoken promise lingering in the air. As they steeled themselves for the chaos outside their doors, a thought crystallized amid their turmoil. Their fight was not just against external forces, but also the demons lurking within their own hearts. Scene 103. An unexpected threat. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee filled the elegant drawing room, mingling with the faint scent of lavender wafting from an array of flowering plants lining the expansive windowsill. Laelani Sinclair stood at the edge of the mahogany table, meticulously arranging the delicate china as if attempting to impose order on the chaos swirling within her mind. Each precise movement of her fingers felt like a tether, anchoring her to a moment that was slipping away like sand through her grasp. "Have you seen the jasmine blossoms?" Desmond Carver asked, his voice low yet resonant, as he stepped inside, a tray of pastries balanced confidently in hand. Laelani's heart surged at the sight of him, his intensity cloaked in the refined poise of his role as a butler, yet a shared connection subtly woven through every glance. "Not since yesterday," she replied, sliding her gaze to his, electricity sparking between them, as it inevitably did. Desmond's fingers brushed against a delicate teacup, knocking it ever so slightly, a tiny tremor that mirrored the unease creeping into the corners of their afternoon sanctuary. "I'll fetch some later. It's only fitting for today's gathering," he said, his voice steady, but the underlying tension was palpable. Laelani caught the hesitation in his body language, a clenched jaw, a flicker of his dark eyes that hinted at something unspoken. "Are you all right?" she ventured, concern slipping into her light tone. He didn't answer immediately, and the weight of silence enveloped them like an uninvited guest. Instead, he leaned closer, an act so natural, yet so laden with implications that made her pulse quicken. "There's something from my past that I've been avoiding." The words hung between them, heavy clouds promising storms. Just then, as if summoned by an unseen hand, the entrance door creaked open. A figure emerged, silhouetted against the soft light of the corridor beyond. Laelani's heart sank as a flash of recognition ignited in Desmond's eyes. His past had arrived without announcement, thrusting them back into uncertainty. "Desmond," the figure called, their voice smooth yet edged with a sinister familiarity. "It's been too long." Laelani instinctively took a step back, her chest tightening. The newcomer, a tall man with slicked-back hair and a perfectly pressed coat, brought an unsettling aura that contrasted with the warmth of the room. "What do you want?" Desmond replied, his posture now rigid, muscles coiled like a spring. "Just a chat among friends," the man smirked, revealing a hint of malice. "I couldn't help but notice you've settled into a rather intriguing life. What would Lady Laelani say if she knew who you really were?" Desmond's demeanor darkened, a storm brewing behind his calm facade. "She has no need to be concerned with my past." His words were cold, an ultimatum masked as a reply. Laelani could sense the tension thickening in the air. She felt the chill running along her spine, as the world felt like it wrapped tightly around their conversation. Yet, despite the unease, she wanted to reach out, to connect with him in the face of looming danger. As the fragile tension held them captive, she took a step forward, her voice breaking through the charged silence. "Desmond, what's going on?" Before he could respond, the stranger's smile widened. "Oh, you don't want to be dragged into this, dear Lady Sinclair. Desmond and I have unfinished business." The door slammed behind him, and for a moment the room seemed to hold its breath. Desmond turned sharply, his features straining against some internal battle raging within him. Laelani's heart raced as she met his gaze, desperate to convey branches of understanding. "Whatever it is, we can face it together," she stated firmly, her voice a quiet yet strong anchor. but his eyes narrowed. "Laelani, you don't understand." "In that case," she murmured, stepping closer, desperation curling in her chest. "Then show me." Drawing upon a rush of courage, she leaned in, brushing her lips against his in a fleeting but electrifying kiss that felt like an act of defiance. A melding of two worlds, two hearts, caught in chaos but unwilling to let go. They pulled apart, breathless, her heart echoing with the urgency of the moment, a love blooming amidst impending storms. "Later," Desmond whispered, an intensity pulsing in his steady hold on her shoulders as he turned toward the stranger looming in their space. Caught between love and the dangers of the past, Laelani felt that moment bleed away, each second of contact disintegrating into uncertainty. But one thing was crystal clear: they would not surrender to the shadows. Scene 104. Navigating the minefield. The air in the grand vestibule was thick with unspoken truths and the faint scent of polished wood. Desmond stood at Lady Laelani's side, tension radiating between them as society's whispers perked up behind closed doors. The faint notes of a string quartet mingled with rising laughter from the ballroom, where their world of grandeur veiled deep-seated fears. The rhythmic thump of his heart reminded him of the duality of his existence, the charming butler and the undercover investigator, each moment feeling precariously balanced between love and peril. Laelani tilted her head toward the bustling crowd, her chestnut curls catching the warm glow of the chandelier. She was dressed in a gown that clung lovingly to her figure, all lace and layered silk that flowed like water as she moved. "Do you ever feel as if we're dancing on a knife's edge, Desmond?" she mused, her voice light but laced with an undercurrent of urgency. Desmond shifted, his brow furrowing as he wrestled to keep his expression calm. "Only when I'm with you," he replied, though in his chest a storm brewed. "And when we're surrounded by the likes of your husband's associates." The lie he told felt a little too true. A group of exuberant socialites wove past them, giggles spilling like confetti, and Laelani's eyes caught one familiar face, Carmen, her longtime friend, stationed at the punch bowl. She was deep in conversation with Marcus, a boisterous admirer, who was known less for his charm and more for stirring up trouble. "Look at them," Laelani hissed, a hint of laughter in her voice despite the worry shadowing her features. "Can't they see the world is changing? It's no longer just about glamour and gossip." As if on cue, Carmen threw her head back in laughter, which ricocheted through the hall like a melody, offering Laelani a momentary backdrop of comfort. Desmond's lips twitched at the corner. This was the side of her he cherished, unfettered and alive. Suddenly, Laelani's expression shifted into one of contemplation. "Sometimes, I wonder if anyone could possibly understand what it's like to live trapped between duty and desire." The vulnerability in her gaze pierced through the tension. She faced him fully now, heart laid bare. Desmond stepped slightly closer, their breaths mingling in the narrow space between them. "It's a dangerous game we're playing, my lady. One misstep." He trailed off, his mind racing back to the murky plans he had scrutinized, secrets festering beneath their polished lives. "Yet here we are, on this edge," Laelani insisted, a tremor of defiance punctuating her words. "Isn't it worth the risk?" The warmth of her plea hung heavily in the air as their eyes locked, each searching for the truth in the other. Desmond's heart surged, and in that electrifying moment, the ballroom faded away, leaving just the two of them, a world poised on the brink. Before he could respond, she leaned in, breath soft against his ear. "You're more than my butler, Desmond. I know it, and I think deep down you know it too." She pulled back slightly, her gaze searching his, and within that eternal second, the line between employer and lover blurred. Folding his hand around the delicate fabric of her gown, he drew her nearer. "And you, my lady, are a tempest. In that case, allow me to embrace the storm." Her challenge came low and sultry, setting off a spark that ignited their intentions. "Then let it rain," he murmured, bridging the gap between their worlds, lips meeting in a soft, electrifying connection that sent a shiver slithering down both their spines. It deepened, as if they had collapsed the years of societal constraints in that single kiss, passionate, irrevocable, yet laced with the bitter taste of what could never be. Heartbeat racing, Laelani finally broke away, her cheeks flush. "We must tread carefully," she warned, though the fire in her eyes remained. Desmond nodded slowly, but but the whispered promises of the moment still danced between them. Always, he replied, the weight of their actions grounding them both curious and entwined within a minefield they had yet to navigate. Just promise me, Laelani said, an earnest intensity fueling her voice. We won't lose ourselves along the way. I promise nothing more than our moments together, he said softly, a smile tugging at his lips. And we'll face whatever is to come. As they pulled apart, laughter erupted once more from the ballroom, a counterpoint to their charged intimacy, signaling the uncertain future that loomed just beyond their fragile sanctuary. Scene 105, a shattered illusion. The sun slipped low in the sky, casting an amber glow through the open windows of the Sinclair estate. Dust danced in the golden light as Laelani Sinclair stood in front of the grand dining table, meticulously arranging fine china for tonight's dinner. Each delicate movement was a careful exercise in restraint, a facade of normalcy, but inside, her heart raced with an urgency that hadn't dulled since the moment Desmond Carver had arrived. As she placed a crystal goblet on the table, its surface glinting like her suppressed desires, the door swung open. Desmond entered, his presence a wellspring of conflicting emotions. Today, his usually impeccable demeanor was marred by shadows. The dark rings under his eyes were a testament to sleepless nights. Laelani's breath caught. The butler held an envelope, its edges frayed from being clutched too tightly. Lady Laelani, he began, his voice steady, but laced with an underlying tension that made her heart skip. We need to talk. Setting the goblet down, Laelani stepped closer, sensing the weight of unspoken revelations hovering between them. About what? She asked, her voice barely a whisper, yearning to bridge the distance. It's about your husband, Desmond said, struggling to maintain eye contact. The very mention of Lord Sinclair's name conjured an icy knot in her stomach. The door creaked, and Miles, the playful footman, peeked in, his grinning face deflating at the sight of the serious conversation. I brought the... Not now, Miles. Laelani snapped, the edge in her tone surprising even herself. Her eyes flicked back to Desmond, whose gaze darkened. Lady Laelani, this involves your safety, he said, stepping into the room, drawing her focus entirely. Her pulse quickened. What about my safety? My life is perfect. What are you suggesting? Desmond hesitated, the silence thick with tension as a battleground of words hung in the air. He opened the envelope and pulled out a folded note, revealing documents with incriminating evidence that could shatter her world. I've seen the transactions. The door swung open again, this time revealing Lady Marisol, Laelani's ambitious friend. Laelani, darling, I brought the most exquisite truffles for the dinner party. The interruption was timely, keeping tension at bay, but Laelani felt the heat rising in her chest. Marisol, not now! Marisol, undeterred, stepped into the room and gasped. Oh goodness, Desmond. Have you come to steal the show again? As if we weren't already dazzled by your presence. Please, Desmond started, but was quickly drowned out by Marisol's relentless banter. Oh, but really, have you met the new guests? Marisol's manic energy shifted, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface. Their fashion is... Marisol! Laelani barked again, the imperious tones scattering her lady's maid outside into the corridor. The surrounding air crackled with embarrassment. Desmond's piercing gaze returned to Laelani, his voice dropping to a fervent whisper. They're not who they seem. Your husband, he's involved with. Enough! Laelani's voice lifted, quaking with emotion. You don't understand my husband. He has a reputation. A reputation gained through manipulation and deceit. Desmond's eyes flashed with a defiance that sent tremors of fear through her. Those truffles barely hide the smell of betrayal. As his words echoed, the dining room felt smaller, the walls closing in. Laelani's world teetered on the brink of chaos, and yet something primal deep within her craved the fight. The truth hung precariously, waiting to tip the balance. Suddenly, the heavy front door slammed against its frame. Lord Sinclair stormed into the house, his presence as dishevelled as the storm clouds fast approaching outside. What is this ruckus? He boomed, icy authority slicing through the air. Laelani's heart raced as she felt both the thrill of danger and the suffocating grip of her reality. It's nothing, my lord, she called, forcing a smile that felt like a mask cracking beneath the pressure. No, it's everything, Desmond said, his voice low and unyielding. And it's about to break apart if you don't face it. Laelani's eyes flicked between the two men, an electrifying tension anchored in the room as her longing for Desmond battled against the stifling expectation her husband represented. "Now you jeopardize the dinner?" Lord Sinclair sneered, leveling a sharp glare at Desmond. "You wouldn't dare." But as the threats loomed in the air, Laelani dared to step closer to Desmond, caught in a web of dizzying possibilities. "Perhaps it's time to choose a different path," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, the weight of her decision teetering over a precipice of both fear and freedom. Scene 106. The heart of the matter. The rustle of delicate silk brushed against the polished wood of the drawing room as Laelani Sinclair stood at the grand bay window, her eyes sweeping over the neatly trimmed gardens outside, the blossoms swaying in a gentle whisper. Shadows of the evening cloaked the space, yet the fading light cast a warm glow on her features. She inhaled sharply, feeling the weight of her thoughts like a stone lodged deep in her chest. Memories of loss intertwined with the thrill of the forbidden, nausea flooding her as she reflected on the choices that led her to this moment. Across the room, Desmond Carver lingered near the fireplace, the flickering flames casting a dance of light and shadow across his profile. His jaw was clenched. The restraint in him radiated a palpable tension. Every bit of him was poised, ready to spring forward or pull back. The intensity in his dark eyes, deep pools of emotion, met hers, holding a fierce knowing that made her heart race. "Are we still at odds?" Desmond's voice was low, almost a growl, the very essence of intimacy crackling around them. "It is folly to pretend otherwise." Laelani turned to face him fully, her breath catching as his presence enveloped her like a silent storm. "It is not folly if one wishes to avoid reckoning," she replied, her voice steadier than her heart.